Hello and welcome to the lesson. Today we'll be talking about absolute and relative links. I'll show you their differences and when to use each of them. In the previous lesson we learned how to create a link to a website. Each time that we created a link we have to specify an exact address inside the href attribute. There are two different types of addresses, absolute and relative. First we'll focus on the absolute addresses. An absolute address specifies the exact location of a file or a folder on the Internet. I'll show you an example. Let's look at the Intel website. The address here in the address bar specifies the exact location of the homepage.html file. Let's go through some rules for creating absolute addresses. Each absolute address starts with a protocol specification. In our case, it's the HTTP protocol. Next, there's the domain name. Simply put, a domain name is the name of the web server. In our case, it's www.intel.com. The last is the path to the file we're requesting and the name of the file. In our case, the file is homepage.html. Keep in mind that each absolute address is unique within the whole Internet. An exception is a so-called local host, which is a domain name reserved for a local computer. This means that if there is a web server installed on your computer, you can refer to it as to localhost. Notice that I use localhost to demonstrate examples in our course. Another option is to create a direct link to a file stored on a local hard drive without using a web server. Such links consist of two parts. The first part includes the word file, a colon, and 2 slashes. This represents a protocol used for accessing files on a local hard drive. The second part is a regular file system path, as we know it from Windows Explorer. Use absolute addresses when you want to make links to different web servers, meaning websites with different domains. It's essential that you specify the complete address here. By now you should understand what an absolute address is. Let's take a closer look at relative addresses. As you can tell from the name, the essence of relative addresses lies in certain relations. A relative address specifies where the target file is located in relation to the source file. Basically, it's a shorter version of an absolute address. However, this shorter version only works within one domain. Let's demonstrate it with an example. I like traveling and I'd like to create a website about my trips. All my files are organized into folders. I'd like the home page to include a link to a website about me and also links to the destinations I visited. I'll switch to index.html and create an A element saying About Me. The aboutme.html file is located in the same folder as the index.html file. Because of this, I can simply type only aboutme.html inside the href attribute. I've just created a relative link to a file located in the same folder. Let's see if it works. As you can see, it works correctly. We can create a link to the home page in the same way. I'll create another A element and set the value to index.html. Now I can easily navigate between both pages. Keep in mind that relative addresses are case sensitive. Next, I'd like to add a link to pages about my trip to Canada and Australia. However, both ottawa.html and canberra.html files are stored in subfolders. Let's take a look at how to create relative links to such files. I'll type the name of the folder and add a slash right before the name of the file. This is a way of telling the browser to look inside the Canada folder and search there for the ottawa.html file. Repeat the procedure for Australia. Let's check to see if the links work correctly. As you can see, they do. Now I'd like to create a link that will take me back to the home page, which is in the parent folder. To do so, I'll have to use syntax with 2 periods, as you can see here. Generally, every parent folder and a path is marked by 2 dots. Again, let's make sure the link works. Perfect. Let's try to combine the 2 previous examples. I don't want a visitor displaying the Ottawa page to forget to also look at the page about Canberra. I'll paste a link that goes to the canberra.html file. I have to navigate back to the parent folder and then open the Australia folder. The process is identical to the previous examples. First, I'll add 2 periods to get into the parent folder. Next, I'll add a slash, the name of the subfolder, and finally the name of the file. It's simple, isn't it? Now I know that the visitor won't forget to look at my trip to Canberra. Let's review what we discussed in this lesson. We learned that an absolute address looks like a regular address of any website, and that we can create absolute links from any location within the Internet. In contrast, shorter relative addresses always specify location in relation to the current file. We can only use relative addresses within one domain. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll look forward to seeing you the next time.